Chandra. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What an overwhelming feeling this is to be with the large judicial fraternity. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing time to visit Uttarakhand. देवभूमि में आपका स्वागत है. It is indeed a matter of honor for all of us here to have you amongst us today to celebrate the event of the Karambhumi Foundation. May I now request the Chief Justice of India, Dr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, to please come up and light the traditional lamp. May I request Honorable Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia, Honorable Acting Chief Justice of Uttarakhand, Justice Manoj Tiwari, and Chairperson of Karambhumi Foundation, Mrs. Sumitra Dhulia, to please accompany the Chief Justice for lighting of the traditional lamp.
जय जस दीना खोली का गणेश जय जस दीना मोरी का नारायण जय जस देना गाव को भूमिया जय जस देना पंच नाम देवा जो जस देना आदि बदरीनाथ जो जस देना बूढ़ो केदार जो जस देना ऊंचो कैलाश जो जस देना पंच परियाग जो जस देना माता सरस्वती जो जस देना लक्ष्मी पार्वती जो जस देना धौली भागी रथी जो जस देना हरि का हरिद्वार जो जस देना नौखंडी नरसिंह जो जस देना सीमा का नागराजा जो जस देना उदेवो घांड्याला जो जस देना कुल देवा भैरवनाथ जो जस देना उमा सुदेवता जो जस देना पीतर देवता जय भक्त।
Thank you, ma'am, for such wonderful rendition. That was Mrs. Madhuri Bartwal, Padma Shri. May I now request the Chief Justice, our Chief Guest, to please come up on the stage. Honorable Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia. May I also request Honorable Acting Chief Justice of Uttarakhand High Court, Mr. Manoj Tiwari. May I request Chairperson of the Karam Bhumi Foundation, Mrs. Sumitra Dhulia, to please come up on the stage. May I request Honorable Justice Dhyani also to please come up on the stage. May I request you to please take your seats. I'll request Honorable Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia to please present a bouquet and welcome the Chief Justice of India. May I now request the Acting Chief Justice of Uttarakhand, Justice Manoj Tiwari, to please welcome the Chief Justice of India. Madhuri ma'am will do the honors now to welcome you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Please take your seat. May I request Tigmanshu Dhulia to please welcome Mr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank, the former Chief Minister of Uttarakhand and the Education Minister and the Member of Parliament. May I now request the Chairperson of Karambhumi Foundation, Mrs. Sumitra Dhulia, to please present her welcome address.
अस्ति उत्तरस्यां दिशि देवतात्मा हिमालयो नाम नगाधिराज पूर्वापरौ तोयनिधि वगाह्य स्थित पृथिव्या इव मावनदंड। महाकवि कालिदास के इन शब्दों के साथ मैं आज इस स्मृति समारोह में भारत के शीर्ष न्यायिक पद पर विराजमान श्री चंद्रचूड़ जी का धुलिया परिवार की ओर से स्वागत करती हूँ। श्रीमन न्यायपालिका के शीर्षस्थ पद पर आसीन आपने अपने व्यस्त कार्यक्रम से समय निकालकर इस समारोह में आने की स्वीकृति दी, इसके लिए धुलिया परिवार अपने समस्त परिजनों, मित्रों, शुभचिंतकों सहित आपका आभार प्रकट करता है। आपकी उपस्थिति न्याय विधा के अंतर्गत कार्य करने वाले उत्तराखंड के समस्त युवक युवतियों को कार्य करने की प्रेरणा देगी, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। श्रीमन स्वर्गीय न्यायमूर्ति श्री केसी धुलिया की पुण्य स्मृति में इस समारोह का आयोजन उस व्यक्तित्व को सम्मान देना है जिसने विपरीत परिस्थितियों में अपनी अदम्य जिजीविषा को संजोए रखा। बालपन में अन्य बालकों की भांति विद्यालय में जाने के लिए उत्सुक बालक को किसी भी राजकीय विद्यालय ने अपने यहाँ प्रवेश नहीं दिया, क्योंकि उनके पिता देश सेवा के अपराध में तत्कालीन ब्रिटिश राज्य के बंदी थे। रिगोरस इम्प्रिजनमेंट फॉर 15 years। संभवतः यही कारण रहा होगा कि उन्होंने न्याय विधा को जीविकोपार्जन का उद्देश्य बनाया। सभागार में उपस्थित सभी आगतजनों का, न्यायविदों का, भाइयों बहनों का, बच्चों का मैं स्वागत करती हूँ। भर्तृहरि जी के एक श्लोक से मैं अपने कथानक को विराम देती हूँ। निंदन्तु नीति निपुणा यदि वा स्तुवन्तु लक्ष्मी समा विशतु गच्छतु वा यथेष्टम अद्यैव वा मरणमस्तु युगान्तरे वा न्यायात् पथा प्रविचलन्ति पदम न धीराः। नीति को जानने वाले लोग निंदा करें या प्रशंसा करें, लक्ष्मी आए या चली जाए, जीवन एक युग में समाप्त हो या आज ही, धीर पुरुष न्याय के मार्ग से पग मात्र भी, एक कदम भी पीछे नहीं हटता। अस्तु। पुनः मुख्य अतिथि का स्वागत, अभिनंदन, वंदन।
Thank you so much, ma'am. May I now request the Honorable Justice Dhyani, former judge of the Uttarakhand High Court, to please present a brief sketch of Justice K.C. Dhulia, on whose memory this event is being held. Justice Dhyani, please. Yes.
The galaxy adorning the dais, Srimati Sumitra Dhulia, ladies and gentlemen. Karambhumi Foundation has given me the responsibility of placing brief life sketch of late Honorable Mr. Justice Keshav Chand Dhulia, in whose memory the lecture would be delivered by none other than the Honorable Chief Justice of India, Honorable Mr. Justice, Dr. Justice Dhananjay Y. Chandrachud, who is most erudite and learned, who has unflinching loyalty to the cause of justice, who strives to achieve excellence in judiciary, and for whom integrity is not negotiable, who is also the torchbearer of Indian judiciary. His interaction with various stakeholders is an effort to modernize the judicial system. This memorial lecture on democracy, debate, and dissent is also an attempt in such direction. The task assigned to me is difficult but not impossible. I will try to navigate, as I have been assured by the veteran naval officer, that I will not face rough sea for next 10 minutes. There is also an assurance from Ace film director, who is also present here, that there will be no cuts and retakes during the making of this biopic. This land of Uttarakhand is ageless womb of saints and sages. One such saint was Pandit Bhairav Dutt Dhulia, who was renowned freedom fighter and distinguished journalist of his times. He was the chief editor of weekly newspaper Karma Bhumi, which had the largest circulation in Garhwal and was read by all with keen interest and enthusiasm. It was the synonym of akhbar. Akhbar meant nothing else but Karma Bhumi during those days. It was read by poor by circulation. If somebody is sitting in the bus, then all of them will circulate it one by one and then read it. Upper and middle class used to subscribe it. You just read on and you can't leave the newspaper aside till you have finished it. It was published from Lansdowne Kotdwar. Earlier, Pandit Dhulia was editor of Nav Shakti, published from Patna. I was a school-going child when, for the first time, I read Karma Bhumi. My father was posted in Lucknow in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Many journals and periodicals we used to subscribe. Karma Bhumi was one of them, and on the forefront of all the newspapers, periodicals. Uh, it was a fearless voice of the people of Himalayan region in District Gazetteer of Garhwal. It has been mentioned that its publication started in 1939 and had a circulation of 2000. Imagine, during those years, a circulation of 2000 was a large circulation, large publication, and Pandit Dhulia was the chief editor of this Karmabhumi newspaper at a meager salary of rupees 25 per month. When emergency was proclaimed and freedom of press was curtailed, Pandit Dhulia published verses, shlokas of Bhagavad Gita in his editorial as a mark of protest. Dissent is also one of the topic today, democracy discussion and dissent in this memorial lecture. यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानं धर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे. One of the excerpts from the editorial of Pandit Dhulia in Karmabhumi. Justice Keshav Dhulia was the distinguished son of distinguished father. He was born in village Madanpur in district Pauri Garhwal on 13th November 1929. His primary education was completed in Bankandi school near his village. Thereafter, he sought admission in various schools near his village, such as Matiali, but was refused admission as his father, Pandit Bhairav Dhulia, was a renowned freedom fighter, as has been told by the chairperson of Karmabhumi Foundation, that he was denied admission everywhere because his father was a renowned freedom fighter. He went to jail for 15 years, political detainee, political prisoner. He was also able to get admission in the missionary school. He was able to get admission in missionary school in Chelusen in Pauri Garhwal, as principal Mr. Peter was very considerate. Later, after independence, when his father was released from jail, he graduated, post-graduated, and studied law at the famous Allahabad University, where he came in contact with eminent professors and freedom fighters. He was a student leader himself and was in the forefront of all the emerging issues of students aspiring in the young nation. He returned to Lansdowne to practice law in district courts, local courts, and to help his father in the publication of a famous weekly newspaper, Karmabhumi. Yesterday, I received some additional inputs when I was preparing this speech. He was a cultural activist who organized social and cultural activities with the artists of Uttarakhand under the banner of Lok Kalakar Sangh, which was funded by UNESCO. These inputs I have received from Mr. Shekhar Pathak and also from a book of Shri Mohan Upreti. The book is titled as Kuch Meethi Yadein, Kuch Titi. However, after marriage with Shrimati Sumitra Dhulia, presently chairperson of Karmabhumi Foundation, Justice Keshav Dhulia had additional family responsibilities, and therefore he ventured to practice law at the High Court of Allahabad in mid-1960s. He arrived in the city with his personal belongings only and struggled in the initial years. But despite that, he was in constant touch with the people of Hills, UP Hills, who sought his guidance and help to resolve their issues with Board of Education, Accountant General Office, and Board of Revenue Office, which are all located in Allahabad. He would reply by letters regarding their various issues. He was appointed as the Chief Standing Counsel for the state of UP in the Allahabad High Court and was later elevated as permanent judge of the same High Court on 24th May 1984. Those who had been practicing in Allahabad High Court during those times might recall that Justice R.P. Shukla, Justice A.N. Dikshita, Justice Parmeshwar Dayal, Justice Verma, all were administered oath on the same day, that is 24th May 1984. He gave numerous noteworthy judgments and was known for his speedy disposal of cases. His untimely death on 15th January 1985 left a deep void among his family members, friends, and admirers. Justice Keshav Dhulia was the true son of the soil who rose to such high position from humble background with the great determination and hard work. He left a legacy of honesty, truthfulness, and concern for the human dignity. This event is humble tribute to his holy memory. I will borrow the words from a poem of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore on this occasion thus: immortal thou art, beyond the ocean of death, we recall you. Thou have created your own abode everywhere, lit new light in this mundane world, we recall you. Thou have poured nectar of freedom on the captives, ornamented the universe with garlands of truth, we recall you. Left the message that is fearless and painless, hail to that, hail, we recall you. The original poem was in Bengali. This is the translation. As Chief Standing Counsel, Mr. Keshav Chandra Dhulia argued on behalf of the state with eloquence. A judge is known by the judgments which he delivers. As justice, he rendered clear and precise judgments which are reported in Allahabad Law Journal. A few of them are, because if I don't make a mention of few judgments, the story will be incomplete. A judge is known by the judgments which he renders. One is Srimati Devmani versus Manna, 1985, Allahabad Law Journal. The application under Section 125 CRPC cannot be rejected on the ground that civil litigation under Hindu Marriage Act is pending between the parties and the wife is already getting maintenance allowance under Section 24 Hindu Marriage Act. Shane Alam versus Madhyamik Shiksha Parishad, again 1985 Allahabad Law Journal, where a student accused of using their unfair means was served with a charge sheet, to which he replied. Spot inquiry was also conducted. The committee took into account the explanation of the student and the material. It should not be said that the student was not afforded opportunity of hearing. Principles of natural justice were adhered to. They cannot be put in straight jacket. Another one is Committee of Management Firozabad versus District Inspectors Schools Agra, 1985 ALJ. After the reference to the Deputy Director of Education, the District Inspectors of Schools ceases to have any jurisdiction over the matter. This was a case relating to UP Intermediate Education Act 1921. These are all precedents for our generation and for the future generations. I was in judicial service in UP when Shri Keshav Chandra Dhulia became a judge of the Allahabad High Court. I was proud of him. I am proud of him. Still, I am proud of him. There is a saying that when good men die, their goodness does not perish, but lives though they are gone. I would like to quote a poem, a few lines from a famous book, which seemed to me to sum up his life as he would have probably wished it to be summed up. The lines are borrowed from another book, famous book. His life was gentle. His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him, that nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man, so powerful, yet so humble and humane. His patriotism, which he inherited from his father, and devotion are worthy of emulation by all of us. Responsibility lies on the shoulders of this generation of Dhulia family to carry forward the legacy of their great father and great grandfather. There is an adage, maxim, which has reference to this event, and that adage is: if you plan 1 year ahead of you, you grow rice. If you plan 10 years ahead, you plant trees. And if you plan 100 years ahead, you educate people. You create awareness among the masses. I'll repeat: if you plan 1 year ahead of you, you grow rice. If you plan 10 years ahead, you plant trees. And if you plan 100 years ahead, you educate people, you create awareness among the masses. This memorial lecture is a humble beginning to achieve the aforesaid objectives. Before yielding the floor to Honorable Mr. Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia, scion of legal aristocracy, and to whom intellectual integrity is fundamental, I express my gratitude to Karma Bhumi Foundation that I was considered worthy of placing brief life sketch of Honorable Mr. Justice Keshav Chand Dhulia before this august and distinguished gathering. It is indeed a great honor to me. I am thankful to all of you. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. Their legacy lives on. It is visible in the love and affection we see in the audience today. Though our guest, the chief guest today, needs no introduction, but I still, however, will request Honorable Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia to please share what we already do not know about our Chief Justice through Wikipedia or Google, the other side of the Chief Justice. Justice Dhulia, please.
Dr. Justice Dhananjay Yashwant Chandrachud, Chief Justice of India. Justice Manoj Tiwari, the Acting Chief Justice of Uttarakhand High Court. Justice Ravind Methani and Justice Rakesh Taplial, Judges of Uttarakhand High Court. Justice U.S. Dhyani, former Judge of Uttarakhand High Court and my former colleague in the bench, and presently the Chairman of Uttarakhand Public Service Tribunal, and other former judges of Uttarakhand High Court, the civil servants of Uttarakhand, the police officers. And before I proceed, I must congratulate all of you for doing this hard work, 20 days of work in the rescue operation of the miners in Uttarkashi. You need to be congratulated, all of you, for that. Apart from the bravery of those 41 men who were there for 17 long days, there are eminent scholars and poets and writers here. You can see Professor Arvind Krishnan Mehrotra, who has taught us English literature in Allahabad University. And he's a writer. He's written so much on Kabir, and you can Google and you'll get it. There are many others. Mr. Ganesh Sally is here. There are, amongst us today is the former Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank, who's also the former Union Minister. Nice of you to be here, sir. Says Madhuri Barthalji is here, who sang so well. There are lawyers of Uttarakhand High Court and various other district courts in Uttarakhand, including of Dehradun District Bar. There are officers and members of the armed forces of our country, Director, Forest Research Institute, law students of various colleges and universities of the state, journalists and media persons, and members of Karma Bhumi Foundation, including my mother, Srimati Sumitra Dhulia, my brother Himanshu Dhulia, who is here, who is behind mainly the person who has done all this, Captain Himanshu Dhulia, and my younger brother Tigmanshu, and my family members, Vaishali, my wife is there, my children are here, all of them. Today, the lecture is this is the first memorial lecture by none other than present Chief Justice of India, Dr. Justice Dhananjay Yashwant Chandrachud. Justice Chandrachud belongs to a family of very eminent jurists and judges. His grandfather was, amongst many other things he did, he was also a professor of law. And amongst his many students were, many of them were later became eminent lawyers and judges of Bombay High Court, including Justice Gajendra Gadkar, who became the 7th Chief Justice of India, was a student, and he remembers him very fondly in his memoir. His father, Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, was an eminent lawyer in Bombay High Court and was a public prosecutor in most of you knowing the Nanavati case, the Nanavati trial. Then he became a judge of Bombay High Court and then later a judge of the Supreme Court of India and had the longest tenure as a Chief Justice of India for 7.5 years, between 78 to 85. And he wrote many important judgments. I mean, you can remember Shah Bano case and many others. But today we are here and we'll speak more about Justice Chandrachud, the present Chief Justice of India. I can say that there is, as a judge, and before he became a judge, he was a student of Delhi University. He was studying in St. Stephen's. Then he did his law from Campus Law Center. And then on an INLAC scholarship, he went to USA and did his master's and later PhD from Harvard University. Came back to India, started practice in Bombay High Court, was one of the leading lawyers in Bombay High Court at that time. Before he was even 40, he was designated as a senior advocate, and then as an additional Solicitor General of India. And then when he became 40 years of age, he became a judge of Bombay High Court. Later, he became a Chief Justice of Allahabad High Court and then a judge of the Supreme Court of India in 2016. Now, between 2000 to 2016, if you see the law reports of Allahabad High Court and Bombay High Court, you'll find them full of the opinions Justice Chandrachud gave as a judge of these High Court and the Chief Justice of the High Court. I've been following his judgment. There are environment law, slum dwellers, taxation. And in Allahabad in particular, he wrote about gender justice, his judgments on elementary education, which was coming up, service law. And then later when he became a judge of the Supreme Court of India, and now since that we are very familiar with live law and bar and bench, it need not be said what are the important judgments, but I'll just mention a few. One of the important judgment, the Constitution Bench judgment which he gave in 2017 was the Puthuswamy case, where right of privacy was read as a fundamental right. And this was a 9-judge bench, Constitution Bench judgment, and there were more than one opinions here. But one of the prominent opinions were given by Justice Chandrachud in this case. Then in 2018, there were many other cases, such as when the judgment of Justice Chandrachud, where adultery was decriminalized and the law was held to be not only archaic but unconstitutional. The third judgment which I remember is the most famous judgment which you know in 2018-19 of Navjot Singh Johar, where consensual sex amongst of same sex was decriminalized. Later on, not only his majority opinion, but some of the minority opinion as well, and his dissents are also very well known. His dissent in, for example, in Rovela Thapar case, where he held that if, I can't speak much about it because in some ways it is also sub judice, but he held that there is a procedural flaw in investigation, the courts will intervene. And then his dissent in the Aadhaar case, because it was held to be an invasion in the privacy laws. And he also held, and in his dissenting opinion, that this bill should not have been passed as a money bill. And the more recent judgment in the LGBTQ marriage case, where it's not a dissent, but it's a minority opinion. So, and you keep on, you see the law books of today, journals, they are full of the judgments of Justice Chandrachud. But then this is just a part of what the Chief Justice of India does. It's not just a judicial work. You see, there are 34 judges in Supreme Court of India, and the judges keep on retiring, their vacancies keep coming up. As the Chief Justice of India, the Chief Justice has to see that these vacancies are filled in time, and he and the collegium members are constantly working on this. There is a separate secretariat for that. Then there are 25 high courts in the country, where there is smallest high court like Sikkim, which has 3 judges, and Allahabad High Court, which has a sanctioned strength of 160 judges. Bombay High Court, 94 judges. The big high courts. Now, in these high courts, again, vacancies keep on coming. Judges have to be appointed. Chief Justices have to be appointed, which invariably is from other high court. And then at times, judges have to be transferred. And this is a constant exercise which consumes a lot of time of the Chief Justice of India and his collegium members. Apart from this, there are many functions to attend, national and international commitments, and he keeps on doing it. So sometimes, I forgot to ask him, how can one man do? How can one write so well? And then how can one be so prolific in his writing? And not just writing, but doing so much of work. So probably on my return flight, I'll ask him, what is the mantra? What is the secret of all this? But one I can guess is his disciplined life. I can tell you his Spartan habits. He takes his meals very early in the evening, sleeps early, gets up very early. It is not even Brahma Muhurt. He wakes up even before Brahma Muhurt, and then he works. But, and like I have some law clerks who are friendly with his law clerks. After doing all this work, there's another quality which needs to be mentioned. They tell them, my law clerks, that in all these years, not once have they seen Justice Chandrachud raise his voice or lose his temper. So these are the qualities he has, and these are the qualities which are actually needed in these times to be a Chief Justice, a leader of the judiciary in this country. I can just go on and tell you about his judicial philosophy. That will take a lot of time, but I can tell you one thing. If I can sum up the judicial philosophy of jurisprudence of Justice Chandrachud, I can just confine it to one word, and that is humanity. Human being is at the center of his jurisprudence. And in these times, this is the kind of a leadership where we needed. Iqbal, the famous poet Iqbal, in one of his Urdu couplet, he has said that a leader is a one who has got a foresight, who's mild manners, who speaks well, and who's very, very passionate. He says, Nigahein buland, sukhanvar, sukhan dil nawaz pur soz. Nigah buland, sukhan dil nawaz pur soz. Yahi hai rakht safar, Meer Karwan ke liye. So you are the Meer Karwan, sir. You are the Meer, you are the leader of this caravan of justice. I welcome you all, I welcome you, sir, to give this first K.C. Dhulia Memorial Lecture. Justice Chandrachud.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the 50th Chief Justice of India, Dr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. And on a personal request, could you check with him the mantra of his fitness too, sir?
नमस्कार श्रीमती सुमित्रा धुलिया, my very distinguished brother Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia, Justice Manoj Tiwari, the Acting Chief Justice of the Uttarakhand High Court, Justice U.C. Dhyani, former judge of the Uttarakhand High Court, other judges of the High Court, distinguished members of the audience, including Member of Parliament Shri Pokhriyal ji, members of the bar, law students, participants, members of the Dhulia family, including Mr. Himanshu Dhulia, Mr. Tigmanshu Dhulia, and everyone present here. आज मेरा संबोधन अंग्रेजी में होगा और उसके पहले मैं एक दो तीन शब्द आपको मेरी मराठी मिश्रित हिंदी में पेश करना चाहता हूं। खास तौर पर एक संदेश में आज के जो नवयुवक यहाँ पर हैं, अधिवक्ता हैं, उनके लिए खास तौर पे मैं कुछ कहना चाहता हूँ। अक्सर हमारा ये अनुभव है कि भाषा के अनुभव के अभाव से आज के नवयुवकों की प्रगति में काफ़ी बाधा आती है। सर्वोच्च न्यायालय के सारे निर्णय जो हैं सारे हिंदी में हैं, सारे अंग्रेजी में हैं। 1950 से करीब 36,000 निर्णय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय के अंग्रेजी में हैं। पर डिस्ट्रिक्ट जुडिशरी में, जिला न्यायालयों में जो आर्गुमेंट्स होती हैं वो अंग्रेजी में नहीं होती है। जो नागरिक हमारी कोर्ट कचहरी में आते हैं, न्यायपालिका में आते हैं, वो अंग्रेजी नहीं जानते हैं। तो मुझे अक्सर ये लग रहा था, अब मुझे जज बनकर करीब 23 साल हो गए, 24 साल होने जा रहे हैं, कि भाषा के अभाव से और भाषा न जानने से हमारे नागरिक न्यायपालिका से काफ़ी दूर रहते हैं। ना ही उनको पता चलता है कि क्या चल रहा है वहाँ पर, और वैसे भी विधि की भाषा काफ़ी कठिन होती है। रेस जुडिकेटा, बड़े बड़े लैटिन फ्रेजेस का हम उपयोग करते हैं। तो इसलिए पिछले साल जब मैंने चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया का जो ऑफिस धारण किया, तो मैंने सोचा कि क्यों हम इन 36,000 निर्णयों को सरल भाषा में, जो संविधान में 8वें शेड्यूल में भाषाएं हैं, उनका अनुवाद क्यों ना करें। और मशीन लर्निंग और आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस के तहत ये सारे 36,000 निर्णय जो है सर्वोच्च न्यायालय के, वो आज करीब करीब इसके 20,000 निर्णय हिंदी में इनका अनुवाद हो गया है। आईआईटी मद्रास के साथ हमने और भारत सरकार के कोऑपरेशन से भाषिणी सॉफ्टवेयर के तहत हमने इन निर्णयों का अनुवाद किया है। हालांकि करीब करीब 30,000 निर्णयों का अनुवाद हो चुका है, पर 20,000 निर्णयों का अनुवाद हमने वेरीफाई करके अपलोड भी किया है, ESCR। दूसरी बात ये थी कि निर्णय तो हम लिखते हैं, जजेस लिखते हैं, पर निर्णयों को कौन पहुंचाता है सामान्य नागरिक के लिए? प्राइवेट पब्लिशर्स पहुंचाते थे। अब हर एक के पास इतनी आमदनी नहीं होती है, रिसोर्सेज नहीं होते हैं कि समाज तक पहुंचाएं। तो हमने ESCR, ई सुप्रीम कोर्ट्स के तहत सारे ये निर्णय निःशुल्क नागरिकों के सामने हमने प्रकट किए हैं। तो मैं खासतौर पर अधिवक्ताओं को ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि इसका आप ज़रूर उपयोग करिए। जिला न्यायालयों में सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सारे निर्णय हैं, आप तक पहुँचे, यही हमारी कोशिश रही है। नागरिकों को न्याय पहुँचने से यही हमारी एक आशा है कि जो निर्णय हम देते हैं, और मैं सोचता हूँ कि इसके अलावा सारे जो उच्च न्यायालय हैं, चाहे वो उत्तराखंड में हो, दिल्ली उच्च न्यायालय हो, मुंबई उच्च न्यायालय हो, कलकत्ता उच्च न्यायालय हो, केरल में हो, तमिलनाडु में हो, हर एक न्यायालय और हर एक राज्य में अपनी भाषा में हम अपने नागरिकों तक न्याय पहुंच पाएँ। और आज टेक्नोलॉजी की वजह से बहुत कुछ ऐसे साधन हैं जिससे कि हम बहुत सरल तरीके से अपने निर्णयों को, अपने विचारों को अपने नागरिकों तक पहुंच पाएँ। तो मैं आपसे सब, स्पेशली जो यंग लॉयर्स हैं, आपसे मैं विनती करता हूं कि आप इसका उपयोग करें और सच में न्यायपालिका हर घर तक पहुंच जाए। यही तो हमारी इच्छा है और यही हमारा लक्ष्य है। I want to also, before I begin with the formal presentation this morning, the country has been riveted over the last fortnight or little more around the lives and the rescue of 41 workers who are confined to a small space in a tunnel which was threatening to collapse over their lives. I would like to actually begin my presentation by complimenting, first and foremost, the role of everyone who was involved and engaged in the rescue of our own citizens. The engineers, the administration, the laborers who use their skills on the ground to reach out to their colleagues. I also want to begin by conveying my sense of appreciation and high respect for each of those who were trapped in the tunnel, for the endurance which they showed over that period of confinement. Above all, I think this incident shows us that in times of crisis, our country stood together as one. Those of us like myself who have very little knowledge of what it takes to rescue 41 workers who are trapped in a tunnel, we lived only on one thing. We lived on hope and prayer. And I'm sure that I express the views of countless other citizens, countrymen, women, who lived on hope and prayer that these laborers would be rescued. So I feel that in that sense, my coming here is not just a tribute to a very distinguished judge who also happened to be the father of a very dear friend of mine, Justice Dhulia, but also a tribute to the resilience of our own nation in conducting a rescue operation which has caught the attention not only of India but the world. And it's just a reminder as to how our country, of which we must be so proud as citizens, is once again leading the global world from the front. We led from the front in times of distress in COVID, when we ensured that our vaccines reached out to the rest of the world. And now in a time of adversity, we have shown that even in a country of 1.4 billion people, even an individual life is so valuable that we'll put together the resources of the entire nation, whether it is in bringing that machine from overseas to ensure that we carried out the rescue operation, or when the machine broke down, that we'll use our own internal resources to protect the life of every citizen. No citizen can be or should be sacrificed in the name of development and progress. And that is what the Uttarakhand incident has taught us. So my very high respect to everyone who was involved in the rescue, and above all, to these workmen who are there to ensure that the path of development reaches every corner of Uttarakhand. I congratulate everyone who has participated in the essay and debate competition organized in memory of late Justice Keshav Chandra Dhulia. Competitions put human talents, intelligence, and discipline to test. While a competition is driven by many factors, it is not the last say on any person's abilities. I'm sure that you have had an enriching experience regardless of the outcome, and will look back fondly at your time over the last week. Debates, by their very nature, are designed for one person to be bested, and by the other, by use of arguments and analysis. This may divide two perspectives on a variety of issues, but the ability to accept the outcome after performing your best is the true reward of a debate. When I received an invitation from Brother Sudhanshu for speaking here, my law clerks and I had a divide of their own about who is the cooler one of the Dhulia brothers. While there is no dearth of accomplished members in the Dhulia family, two of my law clerks had an interview with my brother Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia and remain admirers of Brother Sudhanshu's work on the judicial side. The others are more fond of Mr. Tigmanshu Dhulia and his performance as Ramadhar Singh in Gangs of Wasepur. But as a 64-year-old Chief Justice of India, I have my own take. I think it is safe to say that the clear winners here are Justice K.C. Dhulia and Professor Sumitra Dhulia. For being successful parents. It's a very difficult thing when you belong to a family of freedom fighters, as Pandit Dhulia was. It's a very difficult legacy to carry forth. When you belong to a family which has devoted so much to the cause of the nation. And even on my way here, Brother Sudhanshu was telling me of Karma Bhumi, which was published in Lansdowne. It is very difficult for succeeding generations to fill in those shoes. People in the outside world believe that if you belong to a distinguished family, as Brother Sudhanshu and his brothers belong, it's all easy for you. A door opens, it may be true, but living up to what has been laid down by the previous generations in the family is no easy task at all. And in that sense, I really would wish to compliment the succeeding generations of the Sudhanshu, of the Dulia family, Sudhanshu, Himanshu, Tigmanshu, for having carried on and accepted the baton for serving society. Somebody in the Indian Armed Forces, somebody in the judiciary, somebody in the world of art and visual media. All these are essentially facets of public service. And I want to begin my lecture this morning by emphasizing the need for public service. Because the true worth of a nation does not lie merely in making material progress, which our nation is of course making. Less and less people now are in the poverty line segment of our society. That's the progress of the nation, which we must aspire for. But individually, we must look beyond that. Because it is only when we as individuals develop the idea of service to society, service to humanity, that we take our own lives to a different plane. And service to humanity does not necessarily mean service by being employed in the government. Not at all. That's one avenue for service to society. You can serve society whether you're doctors, whether you're engineers, as they were in the rescue of these 41 laborers, whether you're chartered accountants. But in service to society, you will realize that you uplift your own evolution as individuals. And in that upliftment of your own position as individuals from the realm of the mundane to the realm of the sublime, that you really become leaders for tomorrow. And I see so many young people in the audience that I thought that without sounding patronizing, that I must begin this with a little word of not advice, but sharing my own lived experiences. As we are concluding an essay and debate competition, I thought it would be an opportune moment to talk about the relevance of debate and deliberation to our society and civic structure. Therefore, I will be speaking about democracy, debate, and dissent today. Since we are in the pristine state of Uttarakhand, which is also known as Devbhumi, I thought we must pay tribute to the currents which the holy book of our nation, the Constitution, has cultivated. First, I will talk about the objective of a democratic society and the role that the aspirations of citizens play in it. Second, I will talk how deliberation underlies our democratic foundations and why it must inform persistent engagement with the polity. Lastly, I will talk about the vitality of dissent and the direction of a democracy. The Constitution was adopted in an atmosphere of expectation and idealism. The framers of the Constitution rooted these expectations in the nation's ideals and provided the institutions and processes for achieving them. The Constitution was designed to break the shackles of traditional social hierarchies and to usher in a new era of freedom, equality, and justice. All this was to be achieved through a democratic spirit, using constitutional and democratic institutions. So many nations attained independence with us, but the hallmark of our nation is that by the spirit of dialogue, by the spirit of democracy, by the spirit of acceptance of the viewpoints of others, we have been able to keep the power of violence subdued by the power of the Constitution. Many other nations which attained independence with us have not been as fortunate as we are. But the power of our nation and in our achievements lies in the spirit which the Constitution has given us. The spirit of discussion, the spirit of understanding, the spirit of realizing the lived experiences of others and internalizing them into our own lived experiences. Our country has a robust democratic heritage which it has earned over the last 7 decades through constant dialogue, experimentation, and participation. But to truly appreciate this heritage, we must explore a primitive question about what purpose does democracy serve in our society. In Abraham Lincoln's famous words, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. People therefore form the basis of democracy. This sentiment has been universally echoed. The first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, in his book, The Discovery of India, highlighted his interactions with people at public meetings, where he would say that ultimately, what counted were the people of India. And since then, through the last 7 decades, this is the common feature which has permeated the entire political establishment in India. Namely, what counts are the people of India. And though I belong to the judicial fraternity, it is important that we recognize the role which has been played by other institutions of our democratic polity, Parliament, the state legislatures, the executive, whether in the states or in the union, in fostering this unique culture in our polity that has become the hallmark of our nation. Mother India was essentially its millions of people, and victory to her meant victory to the people. But one could as easily ask who these people are and in what way does democracy serve them? At its most basic, democracy ensures that people get to vote in periodic elections, that every person has one vote and every vote has one value. It is a way of constituting political relations such that the exercising state power receives popular authorization. Democracy is messy and imperfect, but inherent in it are the postulates of justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Mere appeal to voting and governance by those elected through periodic elections will remain an incomplete endeavor in the democratic experiment without upholding these postulates of justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. These postulates are upheld in two ways. First, by robust institutions that carry out democratic functions, and second, by introducing procedural guarantees which prevent seepage of bias and unfairness in the process of decision making. Democracy requires constant dialogue between differing opinions and civil society organizations to fulfill the aspirations of the people. Imagine, for instance, an uninstructed cook without utensils. Imagine also a cook who is completely unsupervised and procures ingredients and utensils, but instead of using them, keeps them as personal gains. Both these scenarios would fail to achieve the end goals. But even if the chef were to have adequate tools and supervision, they would still fail to meet the expectations of the consumers if they receive no feedback or instructions. Democracy unleashes the aspirations to fundamentally reorder social relations in a completely new way. It is premised on the recognition that there is no natural source of authority that can exercise power over individuals. Therefore, people are presumptively, as it is said, free and equal. This presumptive equality in a democracy hardly reflects the reality of our society. Dr. Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar, on the eve of the enactment of our Constitution, had addressed the Constituent Assembly when he said, and I quote Dr. Ambedkar, "We are going to enter into a life of contradictions. In politics, we will have equality, and in social and economic life, we will have inequality. How long shall we continue to live this life of contradictions? How long shall we continue to deny equality in our social and economic life? If we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril." Democracy is contingent on certain minimum guarantees where free citizens can genuinely claim control over the circumstances of our own lives. First, it must routinely produce consensus decisions or consensual decisions without arbitrary or unfair imposition of power. Second, citizens must participate in civil and political discourse and have an interest in it. This is a social world where their moral status of citizens is acknowledged, a world which is structured to enable their freedom and serve their interests. Third, citizens must associate with each other, not only as competitors, but in a relationship of reciprocal recognition and mutual respect. However, this consensus, discourse, and association can only happen where democracy acts towards the ends of uprooting social hierarchies and prejudices. For all citizens to feel free in a democracy, the state must side with a weaker population, which may be a numerical or social minority. This may at first appear to be at odds with the democratic principle of majority rule. However, a mere rule by majority can be established by many forms of government. The beauty of a democracy is the sense of moral status with which all citizens can participate in a country and the consensus in its decision making. In a democracy, the majority will have its way, but the minority will have its say. To be equal is not only to be equal in the eyes of the law, but also to be treated as equals by our fellow citizens. Laws are the most visible guarantors of and impediments to personal freedoms. However, the indignity of inequality often comes not in the form of a policy or a law, but in the form of, say, exclusion from informal workplace gatherings, or even social groups in school and university due to religion, caste, gender, or sexual orientation. One of the biggest challenges we collectively face is how we surmount issues of this nature where there is no violation of a legally enforceable right in the traditional sense. Members of social minorities who are unlikely to be represented through electoral democracy because of religion, caste, sex, or sexual orientation are overrepresented before the courts in constitutional cases. But certainly, judicial institutions were neither meant to tackle such problems, nor are they equipped to do so in all cases. The issue with framing all social and political issues in the language of rights and resorting to the courts to resolve these issues is that it reduces the constitutional space envisaged for other democratic institutions and mechanisms. The Constitution envisions other methods to which the abuse of power can legitimately be checked. This includes debates and discussions inside and outside the legislature on crucial issues. The executive can be held accountable for its actions by Parliament, inside the House and outside by the citizenry. While the Constitution grants rights to citizens and places a corresponding duty on the state to enforce such rights, the real test of the Constitution is seldom in courts, but in society. George Orwell's fable, Animal Farm, throws light upon the issue that I am attempting to elucidate. In the fable, the animals in Manor Farm rebel against their human owner. After a successful revolution overthrowing the humans, they adopt 7 commandments. One of the commandments is that all animals are equal. However, Napoleon, the pig, establishes an authoritarian regime. Napoleon demands that the hens hand over their eggs to be sold. When the hens deny, they are starved and later slaughtered. Similarly, though it was the idea of Snowball, another pig, to establish a windmill to ease the workload of the animals, Napoleon takes credit for the idea, thus distorting the truth. Orwell ends the fable with the message, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Why were the 7 commandments not sufficient to protect the rights of animals? The governance in Manor Farm fell apart because there were no entrenched rules or institutions for governance. The lack of such rules led to an arbitrary exercise of power, radically altering the very content of rights themselves. By its very nature, a democracy may be guided by the Constitution, but its force must be driven from the morality inherent in constitutionalism. The rights given by the Constitution are always at the risk of becoming a parchment guarantee if the Constitution does not establish a structure that effectively checks the exercise of power and abuse of it. It is therefore imperative for citizens to engage in a dialogue with each other and with the legislative and executive arms of the state. The practice of constitutional values and organic reorientation of societal practices is essential to achieving the constitutional vision. Active participation by the citizenry in the democratic process in ways that are not expressly mentioned in the Constitution, but are nonetheless implicit in the Constitution structure, is indispensable to realizing constitutional rights. Essential to this are structures that enable citizenry participation. An informed electorate is a choosing electorate. Without such information, a lot of what we say about the power in the vote of the people would just be meaningless. Would a citizen be a contributor to the democratic process or a passive observer depends on their access to relevant information and their ability to not only consume it, but to engage with it. This engagement and debate lie at the core of what we call a participative democracy. A participative democracy simply entails a democracy that operates on and promotes deliberation. This deliberation emerges not only from the need to secure the right to speech and expression, but also publicly engage with the ideas and enable transformation. It is rooted in the very conception of democracy, and it liberates a democracy from its majoritarian impulses. While the right to free speech entails truth, discovery, and self-fulfillment of the citizen, its primary purpose is critical interaction and debate. There are overlaps, but in the context of a democracy, the relevance of free speech lies in deliberation with the uncomfortable aspects of our realities. If a democracy cannot safeguard discourse around the needs of all its people, it falls short of its promise. Thus, in order to resolve their discontent, a democracy must begin by hearing the voices of the people. For instance, India's official Oscar entry in 2018, Newton, told the story of a government clerk who is deployed in a remote insurgency-ridden village in Chhattisgarh on election duty. The story of his many maneuvers to have people exercise a simple right to vote is an uncomfortable truth as much as it is a creative exercise. What it also does is show that the heart of a democracy lies in people willing to participate and register their voices and the framework that it takes for people to exercise this will. While free speech is in and of itself a whole universe of discussion, I intend to speak of its discursive purpose in a democracy. As I said earlier, a democracy continues to be one when the electorate is informed and has both access to and influence over its governing bodies. A discursive democracy creates a fertile ground for deliberation, which is inclusive and egalitarian. Its institutions must ensure that everyone can engage in a discourse on equal terms, and no force except that of better argument interrupts such an engagement. I will elucidate this by tracing how deliberation underlines our democracy from its very inception in the Constituent Assembly. The framers of the Constitution were tasked with stitching together the fragments of the country as they found it into a democracy. The Constitution has endured over the 7 decades and has been internalized both by the masses and by the elites. It has provided the basis for limitations on ambitious executives and provided a language of politics for various groups in society. However, there were several imperfections in the conditions in which the Constitution was enacted or adopted. First, there was the colonial legacy of poverty, illiteracy, and social division, which left many to be skeptical of the survival of India as a pluralistic society governed by a democratic constitution. The endurance of the constitution to this day is thus quite uncharacteristic in a society like ours, as someone would say. Second, the cause of this endurance can hardly be its perfect composition. The Constituent Assembly did include a diverse set of members, but it was predominantly a majoritarian, upper caste, male urban exercise. In a very recent book, Achut Chetan, a book about the founding mothers of the Constitution, writes that while they did play a formative role in envisioning a modern universe for the women of the country, their narratives as well as the history of their contributions were largely subsumed by the dominant, quote-unquote, founding fathers narrative, a term we almost subconsciously adopted in our gendered vocabulary to represent the framers of the Constitution. So if not its inclusive composition, what exactly explains the continued relevance of the Constitution to our lives? The answer lies in its discursive foundation, as well as discursive potential. Its composition aside, the process of its framing was an inclusive exercise based in discursive democracy. The Constitution, owing to this inclusive process, resonated with the people of the country and created windows of engagement with its discontents. This is precisely the reason for its entrenchment, the ability to promote debate and deliberation. Instances of debates from the Constituent Assembly demonstrate how deliberations that lead to decisions impact our lives just as much, if not more, than the outcomes. For instance, despite Mahatma Gandhiji's insistence, local self-governance was not made a part of the governing structures of the Constitution, but were relegated to the non-enforceable directive principles of state policy. This was the result of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's understanding of the Indian society as deeply fragmented along the lines of caste. Local self-governance in such a context would have only created a legal structure that was rooted in the social reality of inequality and discrimination. However, after the failure to meaningfully engage with our rural populations through many top-down efforts, the 73rd Amendment to the Constitution fell back on the principles that were earlier considered unfit and reintroduced through local self-governance. We can argue if this change was reflective of the altered social reality or merely responded to the administrative inconvenience, and also whether Dr. Ambedkar's fears were adequately addressed. But the point I make is simply that the outcome earlier discarded at the birth of the Constitution in one deliberative exercise was altered based on the debates that transpired earlier. That shows you the strength of our Constitution, the constant process of evolution, of change, of alteration, of debate, of adapting the Constitution to the new reality of a new India. That adaptation reflects, in that sense, the strength of our society and our nation. The Constitution, while firmly anchored in principles of social justice, responds to changing social realities. This is because we have a record of the debate that transpired in the process of its making. A legitimate debate which proceeds from the desire to learn and to expand the public discourse on a subject is relevant precisely for this reason. The process of reaching outcomes is far more important than the outcome itself. If you have read a very beautiful book by Paulo Coelho called The Alchemist, it tells you that the journey is as important as your destination. In the context of the Constitution, it is said that deliberative exercise such as these are bound to have relative winners and relative losers. And of course, there are relative winners in the nation and there are relative losers in the nation. But despite the loss, the relative losers, if we can call them that, know that these imperfect outcomes are not impervious to change. With social change, the framework of rights that a democracy guarantees will facilitate the change of these outcomes. What a certain group has lost in the present negotiation will be up for renegotiation, and the framework, such as the fundamental rights guaranteed in the Constitution, will facilitate the process of renegotiation. For instance, the Women's Charter of Rights and Duties, drafted by Hansa Mehta in 1946, one of the foremost voices in the Constituent Assembly, contained several progressive demands, such as the woman's right to limit the size of the family, recognition of women's work as homemakers, and demands for creches for working women, among other things. While these were not made a part of the constitutional rights regime right away, they were later made a part of the various legislations on maternity benefits and workplace regulation. The Constituent Assembly engaged even beyond the members of the Assembly itself. It was constantly flooded with postcards, representations, and memoranda from all nooks and corners and crannies of the country. The Secretariat of the Constituent Assembly would acknowledge the representations and in some cases even offer a detailed reply. Those who participated in the constitutional bargain had a stake in its successful implementation and also in its endurance. Unlike constitutions of authoritarian regimes, such as the 1889 Japanese Constitution, which was announced as a gift from the emperor to the people, democratic constitutions like ours endure due to the continued relevance. And therefore, never underestimate the power of those words in the Constitution, we the people. Beyond the Constitution, to engage meaningfully in a discourse that is governed only by the merits of the arguments, we need to strike a delicate balance between the diversity of opinion on the one hand and agreement to basic rules of engagement on the other. Deliberation thrives only in conditions that promote candid discussions amongst all, unmitigated by markers of status, caste, and identity. A democracy, in order to be more than a mere approximation of preferences of a group, must engage with all its stakeholders. This engagement may or may not lead to an outcome right away, but will definitely remain etched as a historical fact, capable of being resurrected in the future. But I want to emphasize the importance that we as citizens must have an agreement between ourselves on basic rules on engagement with each other. We must never, in the quest for democracy, forsake these basic rules of civilized behavior, basic rules of engagement which sustain the solidarity of a nation for the future and in the present. This inclusion and diversity separate a deliberated outcome from a heckler's veto and a genuine, even uncomfortable deliberation from an echo chamber. Deliberation is the difference between a majoritarian decision that is foisted on an unwilling electorate and a decision that the people are willing to accept, engage with, and hopefully alter one day. A deliberated outcome accords legitimacy to the institutions of governance. It is the difference between a defeated idea and a disenfranchised democratic participant. While a defeated idea may eventually erode with time, a disenfranchised democratic participant militates against the very foundations of a deliberative, engaging constitution. And that truly reflects the strength of our polity and the Constitution. In a diverse democracy, it is quite likely that certain opinions are heftier for reasons other than their intrinsic merit. There will, of course, be outcomes that are favorable to some more than others. If we truly manage to incorporate all streams of ideas into our decision-making processes, that by itself will not lead to outcomes that are acceptable to every participant in our society. The answer lies in what these outcomes represent. Deliberative democracy entails the ability of all individuals, subject to a collective decision, to engage in authentic deliberation about that decision. While deliberation sustains a democracy, dissent nourishes democracy. If democracy means that the views of one section of our society prevail, then it necessarily implies that a deliberating and eventually a dissenting minority. And this can at times be more powerful than an unthinking society ruled by a slogan. A servile and subservient population guarantees a weakened democracy. There is an Urdu couplet by Sarsal Sailan which says, चमन में इख्तिलाक ए रंग ओ बू से बात बनती है, हम ही हम हैं तो क्या हम हैं, तुम ही तुम हो तो क्या तुम हो. Which really means that the essence of a garden is formed by the mingling of diverse colors and fragrances. What good am I if it is only me? And what good is it if it's only you? Dissent emerges from profound questions about the working of the society, abolition of slavery, annihilation of caste, emancipation of gender, women, and religious harmony were all once dissenting opinions in the globalized world. However, these dissents hold the power to fundamentally restructure our society by sparking an important conversation. These dissents emerge not from thin air, but from a democratic culture of fierce debate. That is how our society has moved from a society which excluded women in the armed forces to a situation today where I read in the newspaper that one of our lieutenant commanders is now going to command a naval warship. That is the process of deliberation, of change. There was a time when we thought that women couldn't be in the armed forces. How could they be at the border? Now you have women who are leading from the bunkers, they are leading from the warships, and they are flying all the fighter aircraft. That's the process of democratic deliberation, change, and what I mean by a discursive or a participatory democracy. And that's why I say that these dissents emerge not from thin air, but from a democratic culture of fierce debate. Therefore, a society which does not encourage its citizens to critically think, question the powers that be, and engage in non-conformist democratic discourse will fail to progress because it will fail to create a culture of dissent. While social harmony among citizens is a prerequisite to democracy, it cannot be manufactured by removing conditions under which dissent may be freely expressed. A society is often known by its great dissenters because dissenters inform us of the location and direction of a democracy. Dissenters like Justice John Marshall Harlan in the US Supreme Court case of Plessy versus Ferguson. Justice Harlan was the lone dissenter in the opinion which upheld the racist separate but equal doctrine in the United States and affirmed the Jim Crow laws. In our own country, Justice Khanna's lone dissent in ADM Jabalpur versus Shivkan Shukla warned against the perils of accepting executive excesses into the fundamental rights of citizens during the course of the emergency. Ultimately, these dissents, like all dissents, were not only speaking to the times in which they were written, they were speaking to the future. Dissent in a democracy, even those which are unpopular and unacceptable, give us windows to the future, and they are ultimately windows to our own soul. Plessy versus Ferguson was overruled by the American Supreme Court in Brown versus Board of Education, and ADM Jabalpur versus Shivkan Shukla was overturned in K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India. As we conclude this memorial event, I hope that the young minds that participated in this event continue to be committed to the values of the Constitution, which cultivate a culture of democracy, debate, and dissent. These are the sustaining pillars of our society, and my only hope for the future and my appeal to the young generation is, please have a sense of the basic rules of engagement within the framework of the Constitution. A basic rule of engagement based on peace, on stability, on acceptance, while at the same time accepting the importance of a culture of debate, deliberation, and discursive democracy that is so truly the hallmark of our nation. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure the young lawyers and all present here would have a major takeaways from your thoughts. Moving to the next event of the day, may I request Captain Himanshu Dhulia to take the stage for the award ceremony of Justice K.C. Dhulia Memorial Essay and Debate Competition. Captain Himanshu Dhulia. You can use that mic. I think there's some problem with that. Use that.
Honorable Justice Chandra, Chief Justice of India, distinguished members on the dais, judges present here, ladies and gentlemen, before I request our Honorable Chief Guest to give away the awards of Essay and Debate Competition, a short brief about this event I would like to share with you. When the foundation decided to give an award in the memory of Justice K.C. Dhulia, we thought to give a gold medal to the law topper of Garhwal University. But then we decided that it should be more participative. Let us select, let us be competitive and see and the qualities which are important in a lawyer, in an advocate. And we thought there are perhaps two great qualities which are important in an advocate, and that is that he should have the writing skills and that he should have speaking skills. And therefore, this essay and debate competition. We observed that recently in most of the law schools, mock courts had taken over. And so we wanted to drift to the more classical method, that to have a debate competition. The classical debate competition of somebody speaking for the motion, another speaking against the motion. The 10 universities of Uttarakhand participated in it. Being the first time, we were very, very happy with the response. In the essay competition, 54 students participated. Large number of students came from the hills, from Almora, from Gopeshwar, from Nainital, from Tihri to participate. For some of them, we had made staying arrangements. And the topic of essay was the concept of fraternity in the Indian Constitution. बंधुत्व का भारतीय संविधान में महत्व. We did not give the essay topic in advance. We merely mentioned that the essay of 2,000 words, from 1,500 to 2,000 words in 3 hours, and it will be from the Constitution of India. Then, about 5 days prior to the competition, we narrowed down it and say that it will be from the preamble to the Constitution of India. the 54 students participated in the modern Doon School Library, central place in Dehradun. And I must share with you, ladies and gentlemen, that I was so happy to see their participation in this age of social media where keyboard has taken everything. There were students who wrote for full 3 hours, most of them. And handwriting of at least 10 students was so steady and so good that my faith in the written word, handwritten word, and ink and pen was restored. This I'm sharing with you. The debate competition was also very engaging. 8 teams participated, teams that come from Tehri also. The topic was, is dignity a fundamental right or just a constitutional value? And it was presided by Honorable Justice Dhani. And I was very happy to see all the elements of a debate in it. There was articulation, there was intellectualism, there was arguments, there was flamboyance, and they did it so well. I'm so happy to note that these young students who debated on that day would be representing so many clients in future, and they would be fighting for justice and for the delivery system of justice in India. I'm very happy to see that. I've been always very proud of the debating standards of my university, that is the University of Allahabad, but I was very, very impressed by the university standards which I saw that day. With this as background, which I thought I must share with you, I request Honorable Chief Justice to please give away the award. And as the tradition goes, before the students will get the award, the judges have to be respected, they have to be thanked, and the first person is the person who presided and summed up that debate so very well, Justice Dhani. A small token of thank you to you, sir. In our debate, there were 3 judges from varied field. One was a judge, one was a lawyer, and one was a teacher. May I request Sri Garola ji, who was district judge of Uttarakhand in at least 5 districts. He was Principal Secretary Law, Registrar General of High Court, and presently Chairman Tribunal Regulatory Electricity Board. Please, sir. He was the senior most judge. A small token of thank you, sir. May I request Sri Sunil Kumar ji, please come in. He has practice of 38 years in varied fields, RTI, environmental law. He represents various private sector, advises government. Sri Sunil Kumar ji, please. Thank you, sir. May I request Srimati Anuradha Singh, a 3rd judge. Ma'am, I know you are sitting behind. Please come over. Anuradha Singh did Masters in Law from London School of Oriental and African Studies. She deals with child labor, did law for 10 years, and teaches law at the famous Doon School, teacher of legal studies. Thank you, ma'am. The correction of 54 essays was also a very important task, which was undertaken by Anubha Dhulia, who has done her master's in arbitration law from London. She has been practicing in the last 15 years. May I request Anubha Dhulia to please accept. And also thank you, want to say to Madam Madhuri Barthwal, please come, ma'am. A small token of gift for you. Thank you, ma'am. And Master of Ceremony, a small token gift for you, ma'am. I know the session has not ended, but still. Now the students, the 7 winner students are sitting here. The first would be essay competition. The bronze medal, third, and a cash prize of 10,000. Akshat Goyal, please step in. We are also giving a set of books, personally given by Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia, selected those books. Thank you. Please go. The silver medal goes to Jeet Sinha of UPES, a cash prize of 15,000 and a set of books. Akshat Goyal was from Uttaranchal University. Jeet is from UPES. And the gold medal goes to the UPES Viren Pratap Singh Rathore, cash prize of 25,000 and a set of books. Now we move on to the debate competition. And initially we had announced these are 2 running trophies, the runner-up and the winner. And then we were suggested that we should have the best speaker trophy as well. So there was a best speaker trophy, and the best speaker of the debate competition goes to Satakshi Sharma of Uttaranchal University, a small trophy and a cash prize of 10,000. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it was a very well contested debate, and the runner-up is UPS, Anshveer and Manomeet. UPS, please take your trophy and a cash prize of 20,000. Thank you. How, can you take the trophy or you are leaving it behind? Okay. Yes. You have to return it after 11 months. It's a running trophy. Just help them here. Just help them. Take the trophy to the corner, then don't, Yeah. Careful, careful. And now the winners of the debate competition. Of Uttaranchal University wins the debate competition. Satakshi Sharma, the best speaker, and Parth Narayan Singh, cash prize of 30,000 and the winner trophy. Thank you. Can you take it? Please help them. Please help them. Wow. Careful. Thank you very much, sir. With this, we come to the end of the award function. There are some other awards to be given. I hand over the mic to Anupama Joshi.
Thank you, sir. From giver, you're going to be the receiver, Justice, Honorable Chief Justice. You'll be the receiver now. Now that you are giving away, so there are certain mementos that we have lined up for you. The first one, may I request Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia to present the image of Golu Devta. Golu Devta is revered in hills as the dispenser of justice. Very pertinent, I must say. The image representing all us, the women of Uttarakhand, will be presented to you by the Mrs. Sumitra Dhulia, Chairperson of Karam Bhumi Foundation. I now request Acting Chief Justice of Uttarakhand, Justice Manoj Tiwari, to present the Rang Singha. Sir, it is a unique traditional Uttarakhand instrument, a trumpet which was used in wars and weddings. It's not getting over as yet, sir. May I request Honorable Justice Mithani to felicitate the Chief Justice of India by presenting traditional hand-woven tweed of Almora. Honorable Justice Thaplial is requested to please hand over a bouquet. I'm sure these pieces will adorn your home, sir. I request DG ICFRE FRI, Mrs. Kanchan Devi, to please present bouquet and welcome her to her campus of FRI. May I request the writer, Mr. Ganesh Sali, to please come up and present his book, and he wanted to present a book signed by Ruskin Bond to you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. May I request you to please take your seat. Now, I request last but not the least of the Dhulia brothers, Tigmanshu, to please present the vote of thanks.
Honorable Chief Justice of India, Sri Chandrachud ji, Acting Chief Justice, High Court of Uttaranchal, Manoj Kumar Tiwari ji, along with all the sitting and retired judges of Uttarakhand High Court, FRI registrars, students, all guests present, Bittu, he really worked hard, and all the behind-the-scene people, Mr. Anurag Nautiyal, the district judges of Uttarakhand administration. I thank you all for taking your precious time out to attend this event in honor of our father, Justice Keshav Chandra Dhulia. When they told me that I have to give this speech, I was really jittery. I was very shaken. I've walked the stage, many stages in my life, done so many plays, directed many actors, but my legs are shaking at the moment. And it's because I can see my father there. And it's all because of him. It's all because of him. Because he showed us the way. And he also showed us a lot of films. And I'll tell you, I'll take this opportunity to tell you a small story. If it hadn't been for a film, my elder brother wouldn't be sitting here. So when he was small, my eldest brother, Himanshu, they were studying in Lansdowne and they used to come to Dehradun. Our Nani ji was here. So my mother used to come with them. My father had gone to Allahabad to practice. And he called my mother and he said, "Ek film aayi hai, English film, Hatari." It was a film on animals, on jungle with the big dude John Wayne in it. So he said, "You must take the kids to watch that film." So my mother took them. And the film got over. It was a 6 to 9 show. When both of them came out, they were scared to cross the road because there were so many lights. They hadn't seen so many lights and so many vehicles on the road ever in their lives. And my mother realized that they both have to go to a bigger city to study. So because of that film, अगर वो film नहीं देखते तो होता नहीं कुछ. हम लोग नहीं होते यहाँ पे आज. So they took both my brothers to Allahabad, and they did their further studies from there. And then I was born. And so it's all because of Allahabad. If a person goes to Allahabad, he becomes. Honorable Chief Justice also went to Allahabad before coming to the Supreme Court. So thank you all. Thank you all for coming here. And I thank the Karam Movie Foundation for organizing this beautiful event. Thank you, my brother, my elder brother, Himanshu. It's all because of him. Thank you so much.
Actually, I'm tempted to say, I don't know how many of you will be able to relate. कौन कहता है कि तुमसे ना हो पाएगा? What a privilege it has been, sir. Thank you so much. On behalf of all the citizens, I can confidently say that we are so thankful to you for coming here and being such a remarkable custodian of our constitution and a torchbearer of justice. Thank you so much. Tahe dil se dhanyawad, sir. I'll request you all to move to the front lawn for group pictures, please. I'll request the rest of the audience to please be seated till the guests have moved out from the center of the center door. Thank you, one and all. Post the photographs as I had announced earlier. There'll be lunch at the back garden in the Mango Grove. You all are requested to please join us for lunch. I request you all to please give way for the Chief Justice and the Honorable Judges to move to the lawns, please.